Our bank manager at first said no. He said, oh, well, I'd be very careful if I was you. He said, I know a lot of people that have come unstuck through trying to computerise, and he was very sceptical about the whole thing. Although at a later stage he did admit it was the best thing we ever did, and it probably saved the company going under.
I got the basic amount of training when I first had it, and initially they came out each time I had a little problem, until of course they went bust, and then I didn't have any backup at all.
The first thing you need to do is to get objective advice whether you need a computer. That is the first thing there is to do, and you want to find somebody whose prime function is not to sell you one.
Going against professional advice seems to have paid off for Byram Studios, an advertising and commercial photographic agency. Paul Duxbury is the photographer and studio manager. Newton Ashley is the owner of the business. He's responsible for the advertising side.
This is the first job that I'd had where I actually had to get involved with the money side of running a business. Up until then I'd had to manage businesses, but only from the point of view of making sure that work came in and went out. So it was all pretty strange to me, and I really got involved purely because things weren't going right.
A large part of Byram Studios' work is the production of photographs for use in mail-order catalogues. Because there was plenty of work coming in, the financial side of things was neglected.
We sought out the advice of our accountants and our bank manager. We went to see various computer salespeople, had a look at all, went on brochure collecting, the usual sort of thing, had talks to other people. Although at the time we got our computer, there were comparatively few small companies using computers anyway, I suppose it's like the tyrant boss who likes to have his finger on the pulse. One man can control the business as long as he can manage to keep up with the work. And that's the big problem, is that as well as controlling the paperwork side of the business, you still have to go out there and take photographs and talk to clients and do all the other necessary things connected with photography. So there was never any time to do the books. They were left for weeks and weeks. Or alternatively, we would come back of an evening after we'd finished our day's work and we'd be sat here burning the midnight oil, and our families began to wonder who we were. They all lost track of us. Whereas now we've got the computer, it's so much easier, so much quicker. Things are done so much more automatically. And because with the computer things have to be done to go on to the next stage, it makes you actually get the work done. It in itself is a discipline. I think the biggest advantage was in getting invoices out. In the old days, one of us would write an invoice. That would then be passed on to a typist. Usually, because of misread handwriting, there would be an odd mistake on quite a few of them. No fault of the typist, just the fact that she couldn't read what we'd written. It would then come back to us for a second checking. Eventually, the invoices would go out to the client. Then, a copy of the invoice had to go back to the girl that had typed it. She used to enter them onto a manual ledger. When we got the computer, the invoicing system on the computer, it's just a matter of typing an invoice. As you type it, you can see each item come up on the screen. After you've typed the invoice, there's a facility to go back and alter anything which you find isn't quite correct. You can then just push the button on the computer, the printout is done, the invoice is printed out in duplicate, and at the same time it's posted to the ledger. So the whole thing is done in one foul swoop, so there are so many fewer chances that an error will occur. And of course the computer, its best thing is doing arithmetic, which is the thing that humans tend to be a bit frail at. I still don't know a lot about keeping books because the computer does all that. But certainly it's sorted out the bookkeeping side of the business. We do all our own colour printing. We find that it's necessary to keep the control over the quality and the standard, and to be able to, if a client says he wants the print that evening, we can work through till 12 o'clock. We're not reliant on another company getting their staff to work through till 12 o'clock. But we were never totally certain whether it was making money for us. And it was really the first thing that we did on the computer as a practical check that what something was costing us. In the old days, to have gone through the books and found out every invoice related to the colour printing would have been a mammoth task. We just wouldn't have had the time to do it. But with the computer, I think we spent about 2 hours one evening, and we just ran through the figures, got the computer to select the items from its data files that were related to the colour printing. We added all those up, did calculations on wages, and we were able to see that we were doing it very effectively, very cost effectively. With modern photographic paper, it's designed to be impervious to water, so it's very difficult to mark the backs of the prints, identifying the studio that had taken the photographs, identifying the site that they were taken on, and the date that each photograph was taken. We decided, well, this is a simple thing for the computer to do. Input the details required, and then print out a roll of labels that could be stuck on the back of the prints. They're a very good adhesive, so once on the print, it's very difficult to remove them, and they tend to stay there for future reference. We've found that our reprint order rate has increased tremendously. We get home a lot sooner nowadays than we used to. We're a lot more confident that we're making the right decisions, which is important. I think, managing a company, any company, you're always nervous that are you doing the right thing, particularly when you're managing someone else's money. Now we know we've got the computer, we can check that we're doing the right thing, we can keep on top of it all the time.
Like the photographer, many people buy a computer for a particular job, then go on to discover other ways in which it can help them.
And they want to know if we've got 10 mallows.
Jean and Roger Higgins bought a rundown fruit farm about 18 years ago. They also took over Jean's father's fruit farm when he retired, and now operate both businesses as one company.
I've found the computer very helpful. Being a small business ourselves, we can keep the office staff down to a minimum, and I can look after the confidential side of things myself, such as the wages programme and the spreadsheet, the financial accounting side of things. I was bullied into going into a computerised world, really. My husband and my son had a go at me and told me I really ought to try and learn how to master a computer. So I took myself off to night school just to learn basic, and that gave me an insight of what the computer could do, and so I wasn't too frightened with putting my hands on the keyboard. But it certainly helped me because I was very frightened of the computer and I was frightened of pressing the keys, and it gave me confidence in using it.
Jean was advised to buy the same type of computer which she had been using at night school. However, once she'd put all her records onto the payroll and the purchase ledger, she found that the computer memory was too small. To solve the problem, she bought a bigger computer, which had been recommended by her dealer.
In fact, I did have problems because my dealer, he went bust. So therefore, I had no one I could contact to come and help me with my wages programme. And this was most important because the staff needed their wages on time. I always did manage it, but the old pulse rate went up a bit. We've got a regular staff at the moment of about 10 people, 9 of which are outside on the fruit farm, and 1 or 2 maybe go into the coal store when it's necessary throughout the year, and I have a lady who helps me in the office as my secretary. During the busy months of the year, we employ casual labour to come and do the fruit picking, which can be up to 200 any day. We never know who's going to turn up and how many. We just hope they turn up on time. The fruit picking starts in about May, and it goes through to about August. We start off with rhubarb, and we do strawberries under polythene, and we do the gooseberries, then the open strawberries, followed by the raspberries, and then the plums.
This work is highly seasonal, so at Easter and in the autumn, they concentrate on the nursery. Plants are grown to sell to retailers and landscapers, and this keeps the staff busy all year round. But that's not all.
To fill in the gaps, my father already had got a cold storage business, so we have also taken over that. And we store Cadbury's chocolate, and that has peak times running up to Christmas and running up to Easter. I wanted to have a go at another sort of package to widen my education on the computers. So with the guidance of my accountant, I decided on a spreadsheet package. A spreadsheet is something that records the inputs and outputs for your accountant at the end of the year. It's basically masses of columns. I've got about 42 columns, which records all your inputs and your outputs and then breaks it down into the various columns, sort of keeping, say, your wages separate and all your various things into different columns. So when the accountant comes to do your books at the end of the year, it's all split up for him, ready to produce it to the taxman. I realised how important the backup was on a package, so I asked my dealer what backup he could give me on this spreadsheet. He wasn't able to give any backup at all, so he advised that I went to Dudley Open Access Centre, where I could get tuition on a one-to-one basis. I could have 4-hour sessions, either morning, afternoon or evening, to fit in with my work. I went along and took all my books that I used at home, and we gradually went through and we set up the spreadsheet to suit my needs. I had a nasty experience that I was due to go on holiday and I had 3 weeks' wages to do. In the middle of the first week's wages, there was a thunderstorm, and suddenly my computer went quite black. After a quick heart attack, I took out the disk, and luckily I had got a backup disk. There was another clap of thunder, so again it all went black, so I took it out again. When all the thunder had gone away, which was by this time into the evening, I started on the wages all over again. The lesson I've learnt from this really is always to do a backup several times during the programme, so that if you realise you've made a mistake so far through or there's a blackout, you can at least go back to where so far through, rather than going right back to the beginning again like I had to do twice over.
Jean sought advice from a number of people before and after getting her computer. Nevertheless, she was still let down when the first dealer went out of business. Eric Bagshaw is a computer consultant and he helps people choose the right computer for their business. Eric, if I walk through your door and I want to buy a computer, which one should I buy?
I think the simple answer to that is none. You're not actually buying a computer as such. You're buying a solution to problems in your business. And that's a solution to your own problems. Just as the photographer had earlier, a number of problems, the computer helped to solve those problems, let him get home early at night. So you look to your business, what are your problems, what can be the solution? That's the key.
And how much detail should I go into at that point?
Quite a bit of depth, actually, because you've got to look at all the facets of your business, where you're making money, where are the problems, and find out how the computer can help. You may find the computer isn't a solution, and in that case, a consultant who is truly independent can say, don't buy one.
Who should I get to take part in all this? I mean, should I as the managing director, do it by myself?
No.
Or what should
Talk
I do?
to all levels of staff, everyone that's going to be involved in that computer system. If you buy a system that's totally unsuitable for your business, we have what we call in the trade computer-assisted bankruptcy.
OK, so we've got to the point where I've decided I want to solve my accounting problem. Do I look at the software first? Do I look at the hardware? What do I look at?
You tend to look at your need. So, for example, a lot of people say, choose the software, then pick the hardware. That's not really the full truth. The thing is to look at your need. For example, if you've got a large sales ledger that you think 2 people must have access to, then straight away you're thinking, I need multi-user. More than one person can use that. So you tend to look at the hardware first and then follow it up with choosing the software to match that need.
Where should I go to learn to program?
You don't.
I don't learn to program?
You don't learn to program. In essence, you're driving that computer like you'll be driving a car, and you don't need to drive the computer by being able to program. You don't need to understand the theory of internal combustion to drive a car. Why learn to program? Leave that to the experts.
But would you advise me to get some sort of training? I mean, I might know absolutely nothing at all about computers.
Right. At the beginning, you need the sort of overview training, basic concepts. What can computers do? They can do accounts, they can do word processing. So you start seeing the type of things the computer can do and realising how that can help your business. Later on, when the computer's actually arrived, you then get what's called hands-on training and actually learn how to drive it.
Because the sort of training you can get, we've got here some sort of teach-yourself packages, which are very general views of word processing or spreadsheets or whatever. Are they any good?
Very useful, because not only do you actually learn the concepts and the subjects that the teaching matter is actually bringing across, but you learn it on the machine itself. So you become familiar with the keyboard, the screen, and at the same time, you learn word processing.
OK, so now we've got to the point, I want my accounting package, I want I've decided my dealer and I'm going to buy it from him. How should I safeguard myself?
That's very important. You must make sure you know what you want to solve, because you've done your homework. You know you've got a problem. So you must make sure that the dealer understands what that problem is and, in writing, states exactly how that will be solved. So you put forward in writing, I want this problem solving. They, in turn, reply with the computer system, this is the solution. When it's in writing, you're very well protected under the Sales of Goods Act, which is, in essence, the equipment must be suitable for its purpose. OK, so I've bought my first computer system. We then go on, and we've heard earlier in this series from a lady who had problems with buying her second computer. The two weren't compatible. It is a big problem. What do you do about it? You can't absolutely guarantee that your second computer, as times change, will in fact be compatible. So the secret is, in essence, to go for suppliers that have maintained compatibility over previous years, and to make sure that the all-important data is the actual information that the system stores can be transferred forward. Because the hardware's getting cheaper, that box is paid for itself in a matter of months, years. You've actually justified that purchase, but the main thing is to be able to take your information onto your new machine. So all the computer is really is a solution to a business problem? Exactly. And if it's not a solution, don't buy it. OK, thank you very much indeed, Eric. You may find that only some aspects of your business are best done on a computer. Peter Harper found that he preferred to keep doing some things manually. Both systems work quite happily side by side.
Running a business is good fun. It tends to be more fun when it's making profit than when it's breaking even. It gives you the opportunity to demonstrate the responsibilities to people that you should. And there is no greater responsibility, in my view, than that of an employer to his employees. As the owner of the business, as managing director of the business, I have to manage the direction of my company. Now, this is fine if you know where you're going. But if it's a very intangible thing, like we want to make jobs, we want to create wealth, we want to expand, where is the market? Who are these people? What do they want and how can I get to them? Now, so much of my job used to be tied up with the mundane analysis of yesterday or the day before. Now, a larger percentage of my time can be focused into what my job is, managing the direction of where my company needs to go to keep my people employed, take more on and generate more wealth. That is my job. Most of our customers come by personal recommendation, and before we sell to them, we try and find out how they cook, what they cook for, the size of the family. Top-line supermarkets can match us on quality now, on product and on packaging. What they can't match us on is a personal service. We treat our customers as we'd want to be treated. They're valuable friends of the business, and we treat them that way. That we don't hurt them through checkouts, we don't ignore them when they pay for the goods, and we do carry out a very thorough after-sales service. Harper's buy in carcass meat from a very wide geographical area in the country. We only sell or put emphasis on the top quality English meat. We then hang it for the correct period so it tastes nice. You get the taste that it used to give it, we do very good quality control. We then cut it up and pack it exactly the way a customer wants. The first thing about getting the computer in was to see whether in fact we really needed one, so we had some research done to see whether we should actually have one. When we got one in, we first started on using it into sales, because if you've got no business, then there's nothing to account for. It was only after then that we started looking at the forecasting to see what was likely to happen to our industry. We could see it in other industries, but we couldn't really see how it was going to affect us. So we employed somebody to come into here, look at the historical data, and then look at the current economic data that's available, consumption levels of supply and pricing, to see if they could indicate to us what the market was going to do over a 3 or 4 year period ahead and how we would relate to it. And the level of accuracy that the young lady we employed brought to bear was phenomenal. And quite frankly, if she hadn't have proved it by retrospective work, I wouldn't have believed it. But when she looked forward in 1984, in the July, and said to me, Peter, in 1987, the existence of the company is going to be in some doubt. You know, I worry about things like that. And she did it on looking at the trends of consumption, the trends of where people buy and what they want, and what we was doing in 1984 to supply it.
We can take 5 years' data, month by month. We're showing the time between 1 and 60 for the month and the value of sales per month.
She has provided us with the hard data to say we have to change in these areas, and we would suggest you do it as a matter of urgency over the next 18 months.
We then apply a seasonality index to it, which gives us the month-by-month forecast sales up to the total at the end of the year.
The computer will tell us what we need to do and when. The printouts will provide the means of control of that, and the physical manual system of personal cards enables us to have a high degree of personal security over the private information of a customer's buying pattern, and at the same time it's quicker to retrieve it than it would to break into the programs to get out of the micro.
At Harper's Meats, they found the computer was not ideal for all aspects of their administration.
Hello, Mrs. McGregor.
Every order is followed up with a phone call to the customer, whose comments are noted on cards. Peter feels this personal touch is essential to maintain and improve the service he provides.
When we get the information back from a customer, we draw out from the file the customer's card and the customer's order sheet from their last order. And on that we have a line of accountability. This means that the person who took the order has signed that, the man who selected the meat and cut it signs it, the girl who packed it and the supervisor who dispatched it and checked it signs it. Now, if we receive a compliment at our morning briefing meetings, we will draw attention to it, and I will say to the supervisor, compliment Wendy or Martin for doing an extremely good job on Mrs. Maud's order, because it was extremely well appreciated. Or I will say, have a word with them because they cut it wrong. This is not how she asked for it, it was not packed the way she wanted it. And if the problem is in sales, then the accountability will fall onto them. Now that way it enables you to have a very tight control over the staff, both to help them to improve and to encourage them to improve if it's been a compliment. Accountants, in my experience on accountants, they tend to tell you exactly what results you have done in the past, and therefore they're never wrong, since they've got all the information. And that is of very little value to a company that's got to make profit in the future. Now, when accountants like my own, and we're very fortunate in that, sits with you and helps you plan and make profit for the future so you can make jobs in the future, that is a constructive accountant. I will pay anything, almost, within reason. But the static auditing function is a dead one. And apart from the statutory obligation, provides very little value to us at all. Now, the computer has enabled us to increase that accuracy and the relevance of information. It's got my accounts looking into the future. So instead of having a totally past-dominated department, I've got a department that's now looking to say, how can we use the information that we have got and we can see developing to help the boss make us more money? And this may be nothing to do with accounts. It can be in sales or in production. We don't know, but it has freed the mind. And it's tremendous when you see the effect it has on the youngsters.
So far, we've seen the computer manipulating words and numbers. Next week, we see it working with shapes and symbols. You could call it drawing from memory.